This is John Howell Essential Cuts, your daily rundown of the best from today's show on 890 WLS.
Reading from my next guest piece, which I read at the Chicago Tribune. The guy's a machine. He posted 3 or 4 articles over the weekend. A measure that allows multiple occupancy public restrooms to be labeled gender neutral was among more than 40 bills signed into law by Pritzker. This new law takes effect immediately, and strong opposition from Republicans. I don't know if any Democrats objected to this. Perhaps Jeremy will know. But State Senator Neil Anderson, I loved him when he was with the Bears, by the way, terrific running back. State Senator Neil Anderson of downstate proclaimed that he would likely lose it if his 10-year-old daughter ever wound up sharing a public bathroom with a man.
I'm telling you right now, if a guy walks in there, I'm going to beat the living piss out of him.
Yes! Yes! Yeah!
So this is going to cause violence, and it's going to cause violence from dads like me.
Well, we'll see. I don't know if it's quite a national emergency at this point. Let's welcome Jeremy Gorner back to Double Downs. Hi, Jeremy. How are things downstate?
Doing well. It was raining, but looks like it's cleared up for the Illinois State Fair. So, yes, it's doing well down here.
So, Jeremy, this bill specifically, it lets businesses make their own decisions. It's essentially not imposing any requirements on businesses, correct?
Right. It's strictly optional. I know we've reported that before. This basically builds on a 2019 law that did require there to be single occupancy public restrooms available to all genders. This new bill that was signed into law obviously builds on that 2019 law, but it makes it it gives businesses, it allows businesses, gives them an option to construct or convert bathrooms into all gender multi-occupancy restrooms.
Do you think this is probably more useful to big box stores as opposed to small businesses?
It really wasn't specified, as to who would benefit the most over this. It really could be, kind of a wide range of businesses. It could be, the way it's been described to me is that it would probably make sense, John, that it would be big box. Any place, any like establishments that have, that draw, big crowds,
yeah.
A lot of foot traffic, big department stores, big box stores like you're talking about, could be geared towards that. But it really, there really isn't any limit. It could be a big business, it could be small business.
I was surprised, a number of years ago when I went out to visit my son in college that in his dorm, there were multiple occupancy gender neutral bathrooms, which the ladies did not like at all because of the, hygienic aspects of that.
Right. I know that's, I believe that was something that did come up, I want to say in the Senate debate. I believe in the same debate where you referenced the clip from Senator Anderson in your remarks. But yeah, I know that in the last few years, this has been, at least in Chicago, the city council had passed an ordinance a couple of years ago allowing for this. So now statewide, Governor Pritzker is following suit.
Did the state senator, did he ever walk back any of those comments or clarify them, or did it stand by him?
I got to check. I don't remember offhand. All I remember is that the next day, he obviously received a lot of pushback on the House side. I know Kelly Cassidy, Democrat from Chicago, did not mention Anderson by name, but, in so many words thought that his remarks, incited violence. He didn't really, as far as I have to check to see if he actually
I don't know.
did, push back on it. But I know that after those remarks, that was kind of the most heated that he had gotten, on the issue.
Also, Governor Pritzker signed into law a measure that makes anyone in Illinois who engages in doxing, and perhaps you can give us a definition of doxing too, to be found civilly liable in court. That bill passed through the House and the Senate with bipartisan support without any real opposition. during the spring legislative session. The governor finally signed it into law. I don't know when this takes effect, but I like the idea that bullies can be held accountable. Why does the ACLU object to this bill?
Well, the ACLU opposes it. They were citing free speech issues. I mean, for example, the ACLU expressed concerns that the law could be interpreted too broadly. It could deprive someone of their constitutional right of free speech. So, for example, there's definitions, in the statute of what it means to publish information and what actually constitutes personally identifiable information. So, for example, the ACLU was concerned that if you have, there was a later version of the bill that got clarified to exclude instances where two people are engaging in like private conversations via text or email, where they're
not disseminating it. It's just between two people.
Right. But, it raises a question about, okay, well, what if three people are involved in a conversation via text? This bill this law only talks about one-on-one conversations. But, the ACLU's argument is, they would think that if you have three people in on a text conversation, which happens routinely, I've had them, I'm sure you've had them, John, then there should be a reasonable expectation of privacy. So that was a concern by the ACLU. Another concern was also just like I said, the definition of personally identifiable information. I mean, there's basically, if you look on social media, you could see people posting somebody's name, where they work, in concert with one another. That would be considered personally identifiable information according to the law. So people share information like that on social media all the time.
Yeah.
So that goes to the broad nature, I think, of the ACLU's complaints about this is, they argue that it could have a chilling effect on that speech. And basically, State Rep Jennifer Gon-Gershowitz, she was the main House sponsor of the legislation. Her argument is basically it's not so much the information itself, or where the information comes from. It's what somebody does with it.
Well, yeah. But the thing is, and I've said this 1,000 times, you break the stupid, guess what? You own the stupid. So doxing is publishing with malicious intent somebody's home address, phone number, social security number, any other identifiers on social media or elsewhere on the internet. If you share information with the knowledge or reckless disregard that person will reasonably suffer bodily injury, stalking, or even death.
Right. Sharing personally identifiable information for the purpose of harming them, basically. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I wanted to talk about some of these other odds and ends, but we're all out of time for this time. But we'll read more in the Chicago Tribune. Stay safe down there. You're right. You seem always to get the strangest weather events in Springfield.
I know. Right. Yeah. These. I missed the period of a few days where there was there was mass flooding and down power lines and a lot of damage in the city. So they had a long time to recover from that. And
this Great Lake,
end of July.
Our Great Lake sitting just to the east of the city, it's a mitigating factor that kind of protects us both in the winter and the summer, most of the time.
Right.
All right, Jeremy. Well, thank you, sir. Appreciate you popping on. Have a terrific weekend, and we'll read more at the Chicago Tribune.
Thank you.
All right, have a terrific week, I should say, not weekend.
Yeah, you as well.
Take care.
You're listening to John Howell, Essential Cuts on 890 WLS.
Think about the people in Maui, what they're dealing with. We can deal with a little rain. Alex Stone is there on behalf of ABC News. Maui is devastated, 96 dead, and that's going to go north. The real questions are why no alert system activated as the flames are moving at a mile a minute. The town is completely overwhelmed. They have the tsunami siren. They weren't activated to alert the town to the fire. That's making people very angry now, a few days after this devastation. Alex, thanks for your time. We know you're out in Maui. You have a lot to cover. What's the latest?
Well, we've been here with a lot of the evacuees in the last couple of minutes here, John, and they have been waiting in about a 3-mile-long line of cars to get placards to be able to go back in and see what little remains of their homes, and police just told them no more. They have to go back to the shelter or wherever they're staying or a hotel because the demand is too high to get back in, and everybody leaves. And so there's a lot of anger here about that right now. But just incredible stories. I was walking down the line of cars, and The cars reek of wildfire smoke where people were trapped and trying to get out in those vehicles. And now, I mean, just the smell gives away the story that they have to tell. And so many are telling incredible stories. This is one of them. Denny Euchert lived in Lahaina for 15 years, tells us that he ran for his life, pulled people out of their cars. They jumped into the ocean, and he's telling us.
It was a nightmare, one of my worst nightmares. It was, being burned.
And he says he really thought he was going to die and didn't think there was any way out of it.
I was in the water for about 3 hours trying to breathe. I'd go down under and put my hand up, and when I felt warm, real warm, well, actually it was hot, I would kind of come up a little bit and try getting a breath of air because the air was cleaner when it was hot because toxins weren't there.
He says that clearly somebody up above was looking down on him. He's a religious man, and he says after 3 or 4 hours, they saw flashlights and heard, "We're firefighters, come with us," and they threw them in a vehicle and got them out of there. And he survived with some burns, but showed us some pictures of just incredible fire and bobbing in the ocean and waiting, going under the water to breathe. And so many stories like that. But the number of dead, John, now up to 96. Only about 3% of the homes in Lahaina have been searched. That number is going to go up. And cadaver dogs are arriving from Los Angeles County Fire and Rescue. They got here last night. Their urban search and rescue team is beginning to go through those homes along with cadaver dogs from FEMA coming in from Nevada and elsewhere. And they fear that the numbers are going to go up by quite a bit.
So is it true that I heard that hundreds are still missing on the list?
Yeah, it was about 2,000. Now it's, I believe, just shy of 1,000. And not uncommon for after a major disaster, people can't find their loved ones and they put them on the list. Normally, though, it comes way down once people make connections and get phone calls. This list is staying high. That's a problem with the number of people who may have died in their homes that they have not found yet. Those who they have found, they were bodies in the streets. Not to get too graphic on it, but they were people who were running away and did not get away from the flames. So it was pretty easy to see that they had died. Now going into the homes, they essentially are looking for human remains in the form of the people were cremated, and that they have to know, was there somebody in there? And so this takes a lot of work, but it's going to be grim and it's going to go on for a while.
Why didn't these tsunami sirens blare? Are they automated?
They're not automated. I mean, they would have no way of knowing, wildfires. Somebody would have to set them off. They're going to investigate that. I don't know how much of a difference that would have made with the flames moving at a mile a minute. Same thing in Paradise, California in 2018 when 80-some people died in that one. In the Santa Rosa, Sonoma County wine country of Northern California in 2017, they didn't have any warning either, and there were a lot of questions about that. In this case, cell and data service went away immediately. They didn't have time to get an EAS out. The fire started and ran through a pretty populated area within minutes and then continued to burn for hours after that. The tsunami warning sirens would have made people run in the streets, and those who did that ended up, many of them died. I've been talking to a lot of the folks who were in it in that moment, and they say it was so fast that it's easy after the fact for people to say, well, what if? Why didn't it go off? Would it have made any difference? I don't know. They're going to investigate it. They're going to look into it. The governor is launching an investigation. Probably tsunami sirens would have been the only option in that moment with everything else going down. Would it have saved any lives? Hard to say.
I suppose. And these the fires started because of the conditions, and then the high winds knocked down the power lines, so you had multiple fires start at the same time, and so fire was coming from all directions.
That is the assumption right now. They have not come to an official cause, but there's a lot of video of the power lines swaying back and forth in 80-mile-an-hour winds, and typically, we see it time and again in California, typically that is how they start. In high winds, power lines go down. That is why California now shuts off the power when it gets windy, which annoys the you-know-what out of Californians, especially on Thanksgiving and on Christmas these last couple of years, that preventatively they do what's called a PSPS, a public service power shutoff, and they don't do that here in Hawaii. I bet you they will after this, but there's already a class action lawsuit filed against the power company here for not turning off the power in the high winds. They have not determined a cause and origin, but already that lawsuit has been filed, and that is the assumption here that's where the flames came from.
Alex, thanks so much for the update. We appreciate it, sir.
You got it. Thanks, John.
This is John Howell Essential Cuts on 890 WLS.
Now, when I drive out of town or into town and take Lincoln Avenue, I've driven by the Bunny Hutch many times. And tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Central, the Bunny Hutch is going to be inducted into the Hot Dog Hall of Fame after 50 years of serving Vienna-style hot dogs. Now, before we get to the owner of the Bunny Hutch to congratulate him, he's on the phone. First, let's listen to Al Scorch, a Chicagoan who's gone viral a couple different times, including this, his ode to the Chicago hot dog.
Mustard's acid yellow dressing, relish verdant green so vibrant, onions, tomatoes, cucumbers cut into vegetables refinement, light as tufted seeds upon the wind so buoyant, angel's fluff, the hot dog bun, flecked with poppy seeds, this holy vessel holds all of summertime's enjoyment. Botanical salinity of celery salt's anointment, as sporting pepper's jaunty spice joins with the kosher dill, the spirit it pierced the sight of Christ dogs split open on the grill, and a mingling of charcoal upon the humid wind, let all who care to know or notice that summer once again begins.
Very nice, very nice. Al Scorch, his ode to a Chicago hot dog. Craig Klatzco is the owner of the Bunny Hutch Restaurant and Novelty Golf and Games right there, Lincoln at Devon. And he's a first-time guest here on WL's Talent Deserving Wider Recognition into the Hall of Fame tomorrow. You must be very, very proud, Craig.
Oh, I'm really excited. My mom started the Bunny Hutch when I was in high school, and she's always loved Vienna products because they're the best hot dogs you can get in the world. And there's nothing like a Chicago hot dog. A hot dog is not a hot dog unless it's got relish and onions and tomato and sport peppers, a pickle, and sauerkraut, and, of course, celery salt.
How did your mother get into the hot dog business 50 years ago?
Well, that's a funny story because Novelty Golf has been around for going on 75 years. Next year is our 75th anniversary. But my mom was like a stay-at-home mom, and I went to when my brother and I went to school, she wanted something to do. So my dad said, hey, why don't you go ahead and run the hot dog stand? And she couldn't figure out what to call it because there's hot dog stands everywhere in Chicago. And the bunny that's in front of the Bunny Hutch on Lincoln Avenue is on the miniature golf course. And her girlfriend said, let's call it the Bunny Hutch. And since that day, everyone calls the mini golf course the Bunny Hutch. They say, hey, I'm going to the Bunny Hutch. And they're going to go bat at the batting cages, or I'm going to go play mini golf at the Bunny Hutch. So everyone remembers Bunny Hutch, and they never remember Novelty Golf. It's kind of a little joke we have going on here.
Ever have any trouble from Hugh Hefner or the Playboy people?
No, they never did. They never said anything about that, but we once did have somebody call up because in Minneapolis there's a Bunny Hutch, and it's not the same kind of Bunny Hutch, if you know what I mean.
Okay. Craig, what is the secret to a perfect Vienna-style hot dog?
Oh, a steamed poppy seed bun, yellow mustard, green relish, pickles, tomato, and you have to have celery salt as far as I'm concerned. We don't, we will serve you ketchup if you want it, but that's really a sin in Chicago,
You'll serve ketchup, but under protest.
Yes.
So you're going into the Hall of Fame tomorrow morning at 10:30. Will you display the trophy at the Bunny Hutch?
We will display it. We're going to have a little ceremony. We're going to have $3 hot dogs tomorrow and good old-fashioned, Vienna style. Vienna's the best hot dog, the best Polishes that you can get in Chicago. I mean, if you're a Chicagoan, you know it. And people move all over the United States from Chicago, but they still want a Vienna hot dog.
How many hot dog stands do you think we have in the city of Chicago, the surrounding suburbs, ballpark?
Little ones, probably they're all over the place. And, of course, we have the big corporate ones that are out there. Yeah. But there's still a lot of family-owned small hot dog stands that you see.
Craig, congratulations. I'll stop by and look at that Hall of Fame trophy.
Thanks a lot. I appreciate it, and I hope everybody comes out and says hi. And I'm going to have a picture of my mother, June, there, so everyone that knows her can remember her from the good old days.
The Bunny Hutch is on Devon, right there at Lincoln. Stop by. Craig Klatzco, thank you, sir. Have a great afternoon, and congratulations.
Thank you very much, sir. Have a great day.
What do you think? Gang hit? Screwed up drugstore? Unlucky John? Or an unhappy love affair? Hey, don't tell me this isn't you. Not Harry Callahan. Say it ain't so.
No, this stuff isn't getting to me. The shootings, the knifings, the beatings. Old ladies being bashed in the head for their Social Security checks. Teachers being thrown out of a fourth-floor window because they don't give A's. That doesn't bother me a bit.
Come on, Harry, take it easy.
Or this job either, having to wade through the scum of this city, being swept away by bigger and bigger waves of corruption, apathy, and red tape. Nah, that doesn't bother me. But you know what does bother me?
What?
You know what makes me really sick to my stomach?
What?
It's watching you stuff your face with those hot dogs. Nobody, I mean nobody, puts ketchup on a hot dog.
You're listening to John Howell, Essential Cuts on 890 WLS.
Our next guest is a returning guest. We talk to him once or twice a month. Mark Denzler is the president and CEO of the Illinois Manufacturers Association. Mark, welcome back. How are you?
Hey, John, I'm doing good. How are you this afternoon?
I'm doing very well, thank you. I guess I should say welcome back to the USA. You accompanied our Governor Pritzker, and others on a trade mission to the UK. What was the focus of the trip?
Yeah, I was honored to join the governor and the Speaker of the House on a trade mission, about a week-long mission to London, where there were about 20 of us meeting primarily around manufacturing and energy, trying to attract these companies back to the United States. The governor went a few days early and went to a big auto show over there, and I think had some conversations with auto manufacturers and those in the battery space. But again, we wanted to put a united front on to show that Illinois is a good place to do business. We have a lot of assets, and we had a lot of productive meetings, and hopefully we'll see some success come out of it.
You said lure back. Have we lost companies to the UK, and what are we doing to lure them back?
Well, we've certainly had challenges here, but we have a lot of companies now are looking to locate in the United States, whether they're moving out of China. Some of the new federal laws, the Inflation Reduction Act, for example, require you have to have a certain percentage of U.S. content in manufacturers' goods in electric vehicles, for example. And so, again, trying to attract foreign direct investment into Illinois. Great Britain is one of our largest trading partners, and so we have a great relationship with them, and we want more investment here in Illinois.
So how do you entice those companies to build here as opposed to Indiana or Wisconsin or Iowa?
Well, when you talk about Illinois, certainly, John, you know, the fact that we have a global airport, a global city, our workforce is second to none. You know, we talk about things like having the two national laboratories, Fermilab and Argonne. There's only 17 national laboratories in the United States. We're very fortunate to have two of them, access to water, relatively low-priced energy. And so, you know, you put all of those things together and you try to make Illinois a selling point, certainly with Lion Electric and Rivian, with the Manufacturing EV Academy at Heartland Community College. We're building out a future in the EV space. And so, again, we put our best foot forward and hopefully get some of these companies to attract and grow here in Illinois.
Mark Denzler is here. He's the president and CEO of the Illinois Manufacturers Association. I've been talking this afternoon how the governor signed 40 bills into law. One that he vetoed was a bill that would have ended the moratorium on the construction of new nuclear power plants here in the state. This is a mistake in your mind, isn't it?
It is, John. Energy, for manufacturers, we use 1/3 of all energy in the United States. And so any changes have a profound impact. And as we move in this world toward reducing the emissions, nuclear energy is one of the solutions. We're blessed that we have 6 nuclear facilities in Illinois. We get about 45% of all energy from our current nuclear fleet. But as we move forward, this new technology with micro nukes, they're called them, they're small reactors, they're movable. They're not what you think today with the big plants that generate thousands of megawatts of energy. Georgia just opened one, but again, we can't take advantage of this technology because we have a moratorium in place, and we were disappointed that the governor vetoed that because energy is critical as we close gas and coal plants that are mandated in Illinois law and national policy. we have to have something to backfill that. And quite frankly, renewable energy is not going to backfill all of that. And nuclear is a great solution. And so, the governor in his veto message provided some insight, and I think we'll go back to the drawing board. But we're seeing other states start with these small nuclear capability where literally you can move them. You think about a hurricane coming through. You think about the situation in Hawaii. You want to take a small micro nuclear facility over there, set it up, and start providing energy to folks. And so we think this is one of the solutions, along with hydrogen and renewables, moving forward. And again, we'll get back to work and see if we can get that moratorium lifted. I
don't think that you can be serious about talking about combating climate change unless you're including fission and nuclear plants. I really don't.
Yeah, well, John, the thing that gets frustrating is we hear the environmental community talk about zero emissions, cut emissions. Well, guess what? There are no emissions in nuclear energy. And so we find it rather ironic that they oppose the use of nuclear energy when nuclear plants run 24/7 during polar vortexes and the hottest of the hot times. Nuclear is what keeps us moving. And we have to have energy for our homes, for our businesses. We can't experience what California's had of rolling brownouts and blackouts. And we've seen just Friday the 4 regional grid operators, including PG&M in Chicago and MISO in Central and Southern Illinois, issued a warning that they think federal regulations and some state regulations are going to create a dearth of energy, and we're going to see rolling brownouts. So what a better solution than going with something that is zero emissions?
Well, look, that's a positive. There's huge negatives, obviously, but just have to be safe and careful with it. Mark Denzler is here, President and CEO of the Illinois Manufacturers Association. One other bill I wanted to touch on in our remaining moments that Pritzker did actually sign, adding punitive damages to select court cases. You objected to this. Other business groups. Can you give us kind of a back story on the bill and why you objected to it?
Yeah, in Illinois, John, we get frustrated. It's 2 steps forward and 1 step back. And this was a bill that came from the trial bar, the wealthy trial lawyers. And what they want to do is increase the size of lawsuits. And so they passed this with not a lot of time to spare, not a lot of debate. The IMA testified against it. It passed within a matter of days in Springfield at the end of session. We were disappointed that the governor signed it into law, but this is significantly going to increase the cost of court cases in Illinois. And, John, I think one of our biggest frustrations, actually there are two, are, number one, they exempted certain industries. So they exempted doctors and hospitals. And guess what? They exempted themselves. They exempted state and local government. They exempted attorneys. But yet manufacturers were a target of this. And, at a time when we talked about going to London and we talked about trying to attract auto manufacturers and battery manufacturers and more aviation companies, here is a new law in Illinois that they're going to look at and say Illinois is once again an outlier. And if we do work in Illinois, it's very likely that our legal costs are going to be significantly higher, whether it's the insurance premiums or actual court cases. Heaven forbid there's an accident, and they have the ability to sue in Illinois. They get substantially higher payouts than they do in other states. And so, again, we don't think it was necessary. It overturns 170 years of precedent. We've had the same law in Illinois for 170 years, and suddenly within a matter of literally hours and days, they felt the need to change that.
And finally, any news, we talk about this every time, any news on the promotion of vocational education on the high school level here?
I tell you, we keep working at it. We're seeing some great things come about, particularly with what our community colleges are doing in terms of manufacturing labs. And we passed a law, as we talked about, John, a year or two ago, that starting in 2025, every high school is going to have to offer career and technical education. So we're really starting to see an uptick in students that are enrolling in these courses in high school where they have them, particularly in community colleges that are building out these programs. So it takes a while to turn that ship around. We have great jobs in manufacturing, as you and I have talked about. They are jobs that we haven't seen before in many cases when you talk about batteries or the EV space. And we have to have that pipeline of workers. So if you're out there, you're a young person or you're a returning veteran or dislocated worker or ex-offender, there are jobs open in manufacturing for you today, and we'll help train you.
Tell you what, it's a great starting salary, too, and benefits. Not every kid has to go to college. You just have to find a great trade.
John, you could graduate from high school. You can go get some additional training and start making $60,000, $70,000 a year, and It doesn't take long to get making more than $100,000, and you have no college debt. It's a great career.
Yeah, I mean, you have to work on the loading dock. I'm not going to mention the freight service, but it's one of the biggies. But you worked there for 3 or 4 years loading the trucks. Drivers now, $150,000 to $175,000 a year.
Oh, absolutely. These are great jobs. A friend of my son's is a diesel mechanic in his late 20s, making well over 6 figures. And, again, we need HVAC and we need welding and we need all of these trades. And whether you go through a union apprenticeship program, which are great, or you go through a private employer or community college, manufacturers are hiring. And so whatever you want to be involved in, whether it's food or high tech or robots, there are great opportunities in manufacturing.
Mark, we'll leave it there for this conversation. Talk to you in a couple weeks. Thanks for your time.
Sounds good, John. Take care.
Mark Denzler, President and CEO of the Illinois Manufacturers Association.
John Howell, Essential Cuts. Check back every weekday for another episode of John Howell, Essential Cuts on 890 WLS.